And a lot of people, their biggest asset could be the value of their home. Can I sell the fifth bedroom off? Can I sell the fourth bedroom off? Like if I need money, I have to make a decision of giving up the house and downsizing, but I can't sell the kitchen. Like literally, I can't sell the kitchen.
When you need some advice, never sacrifice, always get it right. Ask the Planman. Finance, insurance, and more.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to Ask the Planman. I'm your host, Bruce Weinstein, and I believe everybody needs a game plan in life, a financial plan, a retirement plan, college plan, tax plan, business exit plan, weight loss plan, whatever it is, you better have a plan. You need to drive across the country. How are you going to get there? Need to have a plan. Today, I'm going to talk about probably the biggest concerns that our clients face out there, and that's the fears of running out of money and how their insurances or their other assets can help take care of them in their later years of retirement. So what are we talking about here? We're talking about somebody has this financial plan, they have their resources, they have their Social Security check, they've got money in the bank, 401ks, they're using their assets, they're generating revenue, and suddenly their expenses have increased to a point that their revenue stream is no longer strong enough. And I call that your lines crossing in somebody's financial plan. And when your lines cross, you start to cannibalize your assets. And so the scenario might be that somebody had an 8% CD and they were living on that interest. And then all of a sudden interest rates went to 5%. And so when she went to roll over that money, her income went from $80,000 to $50,000. She had $1 million in CDs. She didn't want any risk. She just wanted CD interest. She's getting $80,000. Now she goes back to the bank. Interest rates have dropped, and she's only going to be able to get 5%. Now her expenses might be $80,000 a year. She's got some choices. Can I cut my expenses by the $30,000 because my income's only going to be $50,000? Or do I tap into some of that $1 million and start to cannibalize the asset? So now when she goes to roll over the CD, she's not rolling over $1 million. She's rolling over $970,000 because she needed the 30 grand to meet her budget. She couldn't cut her expenses. And so now year after year, that process continues. The 970 becomes 950, becomes 900, becomes 850. And so now she's facing a unraveling of her nest egg. So what's going to happen in that scenario? Well, what happens when the CD rates go to 3% and eventually they go to 1%, which is what happened in the early 2000s. I had clients that retired 2001, 2003, then they had 8% CDs. And then we had some fiscal happenings and CD rates went to 5. And then we had the housing crash in 08 and CD rates went to 1. And for about 10 plus years, maybe even 15 years, we were anemic in interest rates, which forced people to do what? They had to go into the stock market. They had to go buy dividend paying stocks. They had to put their money in a different risk. So the CD investor couldn't survive anymore with 1% interest rates. They were forced to put their money into other asset classes to survive. Now, 2023, on the tail end, we've got CD rates that are maybe back to 5%. We've got the treasury bonds back to 5 and 6%, maybe even municipal bonds. So suddenly now we've had some reinflated interest rates of earnings, but on the tail end, what does that mean, Allie? Well, it's because inflation went up. Interest rates went up because inflation went up. So it's always a double-edged sword because, folks, at the end of the day, a CD is not an asset class for growth of money. At best, it's a break-even device. CDs are gauged to offset taxes and inflation. And most times out of not, it's still a net negative rate of return for people based upon inflationary rates. Right now, inflation's not being indicated at 5%, but if my CD's at 5% and inflation's at 5% and I have to pay tax, didn't I lose money, Allie? Yeah, I'm not ahead of the game. So inflation may not be tangible in the sense of touch it, feel it, smell it. But when I have a $100 budget for my food and my groceries last year cost $100 and now those groceries are $125, well, how many things am I putting back off the conveyor belt? I can't get milk. I can't get eggs. I can't get the English muffins. I got to do without. So that's inflation. I got less purchasing power. I used to use a very simple scenario. Milk cost $1, bread cost $1. I used to have $2. I could buy both. Well, now bread's $2 and milk's $2. I still only have $2. Which one are you doing without, Ellie? The milk or the eggs? And so that's the problem people are facing. And then unfortunately, they're going to Chase and Visa and MasterCard and Discover and Amex, and maybe they're just paying for the things using their credit cards, which is robbing Peter to pay Paul, because now they got higher interest rates that they're paying on the credit cards. And so now, again, they're escalating and they're deminimizing their budget because their cash flow is going to get worse and worse. So what are you supposed to do here? How are you supposed to tighten these things up? Obviously, the biggest challenge is, can you say no? Can you say no to these things? Can you say no if I can't afford that, or I need to cut that out, or today's not the day I do that, and I don't order dessert, or I eat home today, and I'm used to going out Saturday nights every month, but maybe you go out half the time. Like, what are you going to change in your lifestyle to make sure that you can meet your financial obligations? How do you make sure you have money when you're 80, 85, 90 and beyond? And so these are the challenges. And so part of the financial planning process is to ensure that money's available, or at least show people their options. Some of the options might be arranging and having long-term care insurance so that I can spend my money down, but I have an insurance policy to take care of my long-term care needs, assisted living, home care, or full-blown nursing home. If I've got a strong policy, I can be out of money. I could have enjoyed my money in my younger years, and now when I'm 93 and I need the facility, well, now I pull that little policy out and it's going to take care of the back end. And that's part of the strategic planning, is putting that in place, making sure you have something which allows you to potentially spend your assets lower and lower than you might normally have had. We're going to do a different episode, Allie. We're going to talk about people with no income, people with no kids, double income or single income with no kids and no heirs. And so a little bit of today, I do have heirs, right? So there's going to be some of that conversation in our next episode, folks. You want to tune into that. But the biggest challenge is in that fear of running out of money is their health. And so most people don't want to die broke. They always want to make sure they have money available, and it's to pay for these expenses as they get older around long-term care. Conversely, you can take assets and you can annualize them in revenue streams. You can compartmentalize them into, well, this 100,000 I'm going to spend to zero, and this 100,000 I won't. So there's different strategies of how you break down. In our last episode, Ali, we talked about the timeline uses of money. So when you strategize with somebody, this $500,000 is for this amount of time, the next $500,000 is for the second third of your life, and then this $500,000 is for the third third of your life. Well, we break that down of how to utilize and spend down or access those dollars. The other component here that we're going to do an episode on in the future is reverse mortgages. It gets a little bit of bad press, mostly because people don't understand how it's utilized. Maybe people have had some bad experiences with it. There's a lot of government regulation around it. But we're going to have an episode in the future on reverse mortgages. Now, a lot of people, I don't know about you, Ali, but I'm sure you love your home. And most people want to stay in their home in retirement, in their community, the families nearby, kids and grandkids, whatever it might be, or just their sense of community. And they don't want to leave. They don't want to go into a nursing home. They don't want to go into assisted living. They want to stay in their home as long as possible. And a lot of people, their biggest asset could be the value of their home, but they don't want to give it up. Now, when I moved to Florida, we bought a bigger house than we had in New Jersey. It was 50% larger. It was a 5-bedroom house, and it was just the two of us. So now fast forward, I don't have that house today, but if I still had that house and now I'm 80, 85, can I sell the 5th bedroom off? Can I sell the 4th bedroom off? Like, if I need money, I have to make a decision of giving up the house and downsizing, freeing up the capital, eliminating some of the expenses, but I can't sell the kitchen. Like, literally, I can't sell the kitchen. So what a reverse mortgage does is it allows you to tap into the asset of the value of your home. And so if I could get $100,000, is that going to cover my live-in nurse for the next year or two? Or help me put my significant other in an assisted living facility, but still keep the house. Like whatever the needs are, it becomes a cash accessed item. Now, of course, you're going to pay interest on it. The interest is accrued. It's not something that comes out of where you need to make a payment like a home equity. This is a problem, Allie. A lot of people will use a home equity line to tap that equity first. And the problem is the home equity line comes with what? Comes with another payment. And so a reverse mortgage, folks, do you know that you can get a reverse mortgage and have an existing mortgage on the home and get that mortgage removed? Allie, did you know that?
You just answered the question I was about to ask.
Boom, let's go. So I'm Karnak. I know the questions. I didn't know that. I didn't know that. But again, here's a so what and aha is I could retire, take a mortgage in retirement, have the beautiful home that I want, have that built into my budget. And when my budget starts to tighten, I can now go to a reverse mortgage, remove the mortgage payment, as well as access capital in the value of the home. I'm secured in never having to be kicked out of my home. Now, folks, they're not going to give you 99% equity. There's going to be a dollar amount that they're willing to lend against and protect them against market fluctuations. But at the end of the day, they know the numbers and the math. There's going to be an interest rate charged. It's going to be accrued, meaning I don't have to make payments on it. But if it's a 6% interest rate and I borrow 100,000, well, it's 106, it's 112, it's 118, compounded out. So the balance of what you owe is going to grow because they're adding the interest into it. And that's perfectly fine because I don't want a payment. I want the money out so I can use it. I want to either spend it, I want to buy a fancy car with it, I want to take my grandkids to Disney and shoot the works. It's for whatever you want it to do, but it allows you to keep the home in place. Now, at some point, if you decide to sell, you're going to have to pay the piper and pay off that bill and then eventually get the net proceeds. But more times than not, people will pass away during that process, and then their heirs will settle the estate. They'll pay the balance, they'll get the net number. But again, here's another so what? You're guaranteed never to be upside down. And what I mean by that is, Allie, if I'm your parent and I have the home and I've been using and tapping into that money, and now the value of the home is $300,000, but I owe $400,000, is Allie responsible for the shortage? No, Allie's not. Okay, so your kids are not responsible if the property flipped upside down. We have another housing crash, whatever it might be. So a person elongates and lives, 40 years and they weren't supposed to live that long and they're 127 and the bill's really big. That's the risk they run. Okay. So this is one of the ways that you can utilize some options here. Now, we don't do reverse mortgages. We work with people. Usually that's in the mortgage industry. We counsel people. We put it into the financial plan. We calculate the value of their home and what they might be able to access and build it out into a stage. We talked about the 3 stages, first third, second third, third third. Like, well, where does that come in? Is it my 60s, my 70s, my 80s, my 90s? Like, where am I going to be potentially needing that? And how do I want to address it? If I'm single, again, like, well, who am I leaving that money to? And we're going to talk about that in the next episode because that strategy could be totally different. What are the thoughts, Allie?
Well, one question I had that kind of popped up for me is, and I know you don't deal with reverse mortgages, but people who are wanting to leave these properties behind to their kids want the properties, they don't want to sell the properties. What changes when it, what do they need to be aware of when it changes hands?
Well, if it's the family vacation home, right? They got a family vacation home in Cape Cod that's been in the family for many generations, and they want to keep that property in the family. That may not be the best asset to do a reverse mortgage on if they want to keep it. If they do, and if they had to use it as a reverse mortgage instrument, then the heir apparent is going to have to settle the bill. So one of 2 ways. Now, look, they could have had a large life insurance trust to kick in to pay the balance on the reverse mortgage to clear it up so that it stays in place. So again, here's another tool or technique is how do you leverage life insurance trusts to generate cash flow? So look, I've had clients over the years that say, I don't want to spend my money in retirement. I want to make sure my kids get all of it. And I'm like, not a penny? Like, really? Like, you could have a long existence if you tell me you're never going to use that money. And so now they could invest it differently because they're investing it for a 40-year-old or a 50-year-old. But couldn't we do that strategy differently where I buy or fund a multi-million-dollar insurance trust instead of you not spending your $1 million and now allow you from your cash flow to pay the life insurance premiums, which regenerates that asset at your passing and let you enjoy your $1 million while you're here? Like, I don't want to be meeting at the pearly gates and found out like, gee, I could have done it better. I didn't get to do the things I wanted because I needed to leave all that money to my kids. So if you're insurable, well, then why not fund an insurance trust and leave your kids all that money tax-free down the road and recreate the asset? So the same thing could be used here, Allie, is they can have an insurance trust of some kind. Now, again, if you got to think about it, if somebody's in a financial predicament that they need to tap into the home value, paying insurance premiums may not be high on their list. But again, it just depends on the situation, depends on what they have in place. It depends on how much pre-planning they did. So there's nothing wrong with it as a strategy. It's just a matter of cash flow, right? We're an insurance-heavy society in this country. I need auto insurance, homeowners insurance, life insurance, disability insurance, health insurance, Medicare insurance. And I keep going? Pet insurance. So we can drown when it comes to the world of insurance. So you have to prioritize. But again, in your plan, well, how much would that cost for me to create that asset later using the insurance trust? And wham, I've got all this money now kicking back in. My kids can make those payments and get rid of it. So a lot of different things you can do there. But I would venture to say most people in that situation aren't necessarily going into it from experience, going into it with the my kids are going to keep the house after I'm gone scenario. But it could happen, and certainly there's ways to make it work.
One thing that I wanted to bring up as part of this conversation is something we talked about offline, and that was around those people who are living longer, who are you told me you're planning for 91, 93, so on, people who live longer. And you specifically brought up the long-term care insurance, I believe it was,
right,
and how that could actually help support people even after that average retirement age. So what is that?
Yeah, we alluded to it in the last episode, is long-term care insurance is structured for the tail end of people's life. Or, God forbid, they have early onset of Parkinson's or Alzheimer's, dementia, something like that, which, happens to people younger at times as well. But the first piece of here is you have to understand something called activities of daily living, ADLs. ADLs are simply your normal routine activities, daily living. So can I toilet myself? Can I get dressed? Can I do the laundry? Can I cook for myself? Did I say bathe? Like bathe. And so these are things that every day you and I do and get up and take for granted, being able to brush our teeth, button our shirt, comb and wash our hair, right? Put an egg, on the stove and a piece of toast. And so as we get older, cognitively, we might be fine, but physically we're starting to become frail. And so I can't walk down the hall by myself. I need aid. I can't pick myself up off the toilet after I get on the toilet, right? Or I need to wear a diaper, okay? So once your activities of daily living start to become diminished, usually it requires 2, that will trigger a benefit claim on their long-term care policies. So if they've done planning, and I've been doing long-term care since the early 90s, 1994, I still have plenty of clients that have their policies. And when we did the planning, and we showed the use of their money from 60 to 70 to 80 and beyond, well, what was the big pit of danger? Well, the big pit was escalating long-term care expenses, meaning, do I need a nursing home? Do I need assisted living? Do I need home health care? Well, they're gotten pretty darn expensive. They run a lot higher inflation increase rates than we've been dealing with. And so you could easily be looking at, in today's dollars, $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 a month. That's going to take a pretty big bite out of that CD lady's nest egg. If she's got $250,000 nursing home expense and she's got $1 million in the bank, she's going to be out of money pretty quick. And so she didn't want to spend her money. She wanted to make sure she had it available for the rainy day. But now, all of a sudden, the rainy day is here. And so what we try and do is give them a different umbrella. Instead of having the money in the bank wasted and underutilized, we compartmentalize the cash flow, add that expense in, position a long-term care product that now becomes the umbrella for the rainy day, so that you can spend your money down to zero if you wanted to. Look, what's the trap? What's the pitfall? If I have $2 million put away for me and my wife to eventually take care of a long-term care need, and I'm never utilizing that $2 million, and then neither one of us ever have that crisis, I just left $2 million behind that I didn't get to properly enjoy or potentially enjoy. Now, it's great for my kids, but was it great for me? So how do you skin the cat? A different way. Well, out of the $2 million, if I need to spend, make up a number, $10,000 a year for long-term care insurance, and that's ironclad, protects me, kicks in all the money I need later on when I'm in my 80s or 90s, well, now I could do something totally different with that $2 million, can't I? Oh, and by the way, I've done plenty of paid up policies where a lot of them, at least back in the day, used to offer a 10 pay. So a 62-year-old signs up for long-term care. By 72, he's paid all his premiums. And now from 72 and beyond, that expense doesn't even exist. So there's a lot of different ways to go about facilitating this. They were working. They were making good money. This couple actually were in their 50s when they did it. They did a 10 pay. They were in their peak earning years. College was taken care of. The mortgage was done. They're making over $400,000 a year. Hey, give me a 10 pay. It was twice as much, but they didn't care. And now at 65 or 70, he doesn't have that payment anymore. So this is strategies, folks, that we're going to talk about. This is why we're the Plan Man. This is why we have the show Ask the Planman, is to bring you this information. It's all about planning. It's about being proactive. It's understanding the pitfalls, the roadblocks. That's the planning journey. I hope today's episode, Allie, did you have any more questions? I was going to wrap us up.
Nope, I think we're ready.
All right. So let me just summarize what we're talking about there for a second, Al. So we're talking about the back end. So we earlier talked about the reverse mortgage conversation. Then we kind of segued into long-term care. So both of these are back end of life strategies to access money or have things provided for you in regards to cash flow needs. So the long-term care insurance helps you alleviate the financial exposure. Isn't that what insurance is? Insurance is alleviating exposure. I don't want the exposure. I'm going to hire an insurance company to cover the exposure. I have homeowners insurance in case my house has a fire because I can't afford to replace my $1 million house for cash. I buy the insurance. If I have a fire or a hurricane, it's going to rebuild my house for me. It's going to replace all my valuables, my clothing, my suits, my ties, my furniture. So insurance is just to pass risk to somebody else. So long-term care is going to pass that risk of exposure in our later years as we age, so that Bruce's belief, the Plan Man's belief, is you can maximize the dollars you do have, enjoy your retirement, and not have the fears of running out of money, and then have that umbrella for the rainy day. Does that make sense, Allie? Did I put a good bow on that? All right.
Perfect.
Folks, this is another episode of Ask the Planman. I've been here with superhost Allie. She's great, helping me along. We're going to be creating more private conversation content for you. We want to freestyle it. We want to share more stories of my 37-year career, how we've helped clients. Today, we've been talking about long-term care, reverse mortgages, and the back end of the fears of running out of money. Please like, share, subscribe. Hit me up at planman.tv. Hit us up at 844-PLAN-MAN. Find me on every platform of social media at Ask the Plan Man. Until next time, we'll see you then. If you need some advice, always get it right. Come ask the Plan Man. Wait for the great music kicking in, and I'll see you next time.
When you need some advice, never sacrifice, always get it right. Ask the Plan Man. Finance, insurance, and